Hello Science Fam. Today we're going to go through our covalent compound naming and writing formulas. These are worksheets 1 and 2 combined. Let's go through some examples together just to make sure that we're feeling comfortable and confident. So first of all, for naming molecules, we know that we're going to have a formula. And from that formula, we want to turn that into an actual name. So we have to use the prefixes. So notice that there's only one nitrogen and one oxygen. So we would call that nitrogen. Notice that I don't have to call it mononitrogen because we never use mono for the very first element. But there is one oxygen, so we would need to use that mono prefix for the second one. We turn oxygen into the word oxide, so we would call that monoxide. So the name of this molecule would be nitrogen monoxide. Let's look at the next one. You have one xenon and 4 fluorines. Since you have one xenon, we're just going to call it xenon, not monoxenon. You only use mono for the second element, not the first, if you have only one. And then you have 4 fluorines. Fluorine turns to fluoride, so we're going to call that tetrafluoride. T-E-T-R-A, fluoride. F-L-U-O-R-I-D-E. All right, take a look at the next one. SO3, 1 sulfur, 3 oxygens. So 1 sulfur, we'll call it sulfur, not monosulfur because you don't use mono for the first, only if it's 1 for the second. And then 3 oxygens, 3 is tri, so oxygen turns to oxide, so I'd call that trioxide, sulfur trioxide. Take a look at number 4. There are 2 nitrogens and 5 oxygens. So 2 nitrogens means you have to use a prefix because there's more than one. The prefix for 2 is di, so I'm going to call that dinitrogen. And now that I have 5 oxygens, the prefix for 5 is penta, so I'm going to put that together as pentoxide. I'm going to drop the A and just make it pentoxide to flow more smoothly. Let's take a look at the 5th one here. Iodine, 1 of them, and 5 fluorines. I'm not going to call it modiodine for mono because it's the very first element. There's only 1 of them. But I have 5 fluorines. For 5, that's penta, right? So penta is the prefix, and fluorine is turned to fluoride. We have to end them all in "ide." So it's going to be iodine pentafluoride. All right, sounds good there. Let's try the first 5 then of writing the formula down. So dinitrogen, you have 2 nitrogen, mono is 1. You have 1 oxide or oxygen. So that means I'm going to have 2 nitrogen and 1 oxygen. Notice I don't have to put the 1 after the oxygen. If it's written there, it's assumed there's 1. If there's more than 1, you can write a different subscript like 2, 3, or 4. Let's look at number 2. Sulfur, there's no di, tri, anything like that, so there must be 1 sulfur. But hexa means 6, and fluoride is really the element fluorine. So it looks like there's 6 fluorine. Notice I put the 6 after the fluorine, not before it. If the 6 was before the fluorine, people would think that you mean 6 sulfur. So you always put the subscript right after the letter or element you're describing. Take a look at number 3. Tetraphosphorus, that's 4 phosphorus, and trisulfide is 3 sulfide. So I need to write 4 phosphorus for every 3 sulfide. And once you get used to your elements and their symbols, this becomes a lot easier. Let's take a look at number 4. Sulfur, so there must be only 1 sulfur, and tetrafluoride, tetra stands for 4. So sulfur is by itself, there's only 1. And fluoride is really fluorine, but there's 4 of them. Okay, perfect. SF4. The next one, number 5, let's do this one. Carbon disulfide. So carbon is going to be by itself. Di means 2, so 2 sulfurs, so CS2. All right, now that we've tried out those, you try out some of the rest of them and see if you can figure it out. If you look at number 6, that's Cl for chlorine. And O2, that means there's 2 oxygens. But try some of them out and see if you can do it and check your answer keys. We switch to the back. We'll just do two examples just to make sure we know what to expect, but it's nearly identical to the first side. We have now the name of the formula. We just want to turn that into the actual formula. So sulfur dioxide, there's only one sulfur, otherwise it would have said otherwise with a prefix. And dioxide, di stands for 2. So there must be 2 oxides, which is oxygen. So that's SO2. I quickly scrolled down to the bottom just to make sure we know what's expected, but we just want to write the name of the following molecules. Let's look at number 10. This one has more action than number 9. N2, so we have 2 nitrogens and 4 hydrogens. Remember, di is the prefix for 2, and tetra is the prefix for 4. So if we have 2 nitrogens, I would say dinitrogen. And if I start looking at my hydrogen, I have 4, so it's going to be tetra. But remember, we have to end in "ide." So what is it, hydrogenide? That doesn't sound right. How about hydride? Yeah, hydride sounds better. So tetrahydride. But now that you've done that, as long as you know your prefixes, you should be able to name all of these. Remember, the prefixes are mono, di, tri, tetra, penta, hexa, hepta, octa, nona, and the last one, number 10, is going to be deca. It's important to know those. That'll make your life a lot easier when you're trying to figure out how to name covalent compounds. So just keep that in mind. And best of luck, science fam.